Hey, Pentateuch class, Dr. Templeton here, and hey, 2 weeks left, that's all we've got, which means in 2 weeks you've got your final paper due. I hope by now you've already selected your topic. I listed a few there in your syllabus, and begin to think about which book you want to unpack a little bit. I'm looking for about 7 pages, just like the midterm, and I'm looking for some research. I want you to get outside the course textbooks. I want you to reference those, use them, but try to get outside of them a little bit. If you have questions of theme, of direction, of an outline, send me an email. I'll be happy to help you. I want you to be successful. I want this to be a enjoyable process and journey. So feel free to include me in that process as much as you'd like. Now, I'm a professor that I will accept late work, as you know. It will count against you. You'll lose some points. But on the final exam, let me be clear, I need those on time. It's the end of the semester. It's going to be Christmas season. I've got grades due. And so I just really want to stress, you've got 2 weeks. Get the paper done early if you can, but I need those on time. Okay, this week we are going into the book of Deuteronomy. A lot of people call it the second law, and I think that's a bad or a misterm for the book, because we're not having a second law. Perhaps a better definition or explanation would be a copy of the law. Moses, basically, he is writing the book of Deuteronomy in a series of sermons or speeches that he has given to the new Israelites. Keep in mind, the people that were there in Egypt are not permitted to go into the promised land. Only Joshua and Caleb. And they're going to be older gentlemen now. They're not young anymore. They're not the vibrant warriors they were, but God still uses them mightily in powerful ways. But every other Israelite is basically going on and passing on to glory. And so Moses is talking to a new generation. The majority of these people were not at Mount Sinai. And so he is retelling the law. He is reteaching what the 10 Commandments are. He's expounding on them some. He's giving a practical message with it. And so it's not a second law. It's a retelling. It's a copy of the law. And Deuteronomy is huge for that. And so, rather than just a simple narrative of what's going on like you get in Genesis, Exodus, and Numbers, what this is that the people of Israel are encamped on the northeast side of the Dead Sea, there near Mount Nebo, on the east side of the Jordan River, where we know as modern Jordan. And they were camped out there. Moses is in the tent. He's been writing out the law. He's been writing out the Pentateuch. And he gives these speeches, these sermons. The first one is basically just a history. He's talking about, the unfaithfulness of their fathers and grandfathers. But even in our unfaithfulness, he talked about how God is faithful. Then he goes on to rehearse and kind of elaborate on the 10 Commandments. He's beginning to share with them kind of how we are to live, what society needs to look like, what is the moral code. And so we see these different dynamics built up in how we're to live, how we're to act, and how we're to be. Then he really focuses on, just the community, serving God and worshiping Him. And throughout all of his messages, there's a common theme, common denominator. When I preach on Sunday mornings up at Sweetwater, I always want to have one major takeaway for people. One kind of underlining theme, and then I may attack that theme from different directions. Moses does the same thing throughout the entire book of Deuteronomy, and that theme is one. Constantly, when you're reading through these chapters, you'll see that theme of one God or one Lord. You'll see this idea of, we're to serve this one God. You're going into a land, he's telling the Hebrews, where they serve many gods. You came out of Egypt, they served many gods. We are to serve one God. Then he says one people. And I think when he says one people, this is prophetic. Moses, he may not know what lies ahead, but God certainly did. And that eventually Israel would be split. After you have the season of the judges, Samuel is in leadership, the people ask for a king. King Saul becomes the first monarch of Israel. David follows him, and then Solomon. After Solomon, the kingdom splits. You have the northern kingdom, which never really follows God again. And then you have the southern kingdom, which is Judah, which follows God for a while, and then eventually they kind of turn as well. Then the people go into exile. And really, since that moment, since Solomon's death, the people of Israel have really never been united as one people. They've tried, but I mean, even today in modern Israel, what do we hear about? The conflict between the Palestinians and the Israelites. So there's still that tension, there's still that struggle, but Moses is pushing one people, one Lord, one people, and then one faith. You know, we're all in this together. You know, we need to not be so worried about, you know, our personal views and differences, but be a people of one faith. And so there's a unity in that. And that's where he really unpacks the whole idea of blessing and curses in chapters 27 and 28. You know, we want to flow in his blessing. And then he begins to discuss the whole idea with that one faith idea of covenant renewal. God is a God of covenant. We discussed that in detail early on in the semester. God wants us in covenant. And so the covenant relationship is really renewed and discussed. And out of that covenant, the book of Deuteronomy has really been a source of a lot of discussion as it relates to covenants and perhaps even treaties. The covenant between God and man to man, but then the treaties, that relationship. And that's where we get that term, the suzerainty treaty. And you may have remembered that from your Old Testament survey course or perhaps some other teachings you've done. But the most extensive body of suzerainty treaties comes from the Hittite Empire of the late Bronze Age, somewhere in the 1400 to 1200 BCE time. Equally important, and maybe closer in time to the Deuteronomy text, are legal documents from the Neo-Assyrian Empire around 935 to 612 BC. And this makes the extensive use of the treaty form. Now, is Deuteronomy a treaty? I don't know. It follows this pattern. It's more about covenant. But a treaty, the suzerainty treaty, so to speak, follows these elements. There's an introduction, a historical background, there are conditions, there's a publication, there's a divine witness, and then there's blessing and curses. You can probably already begin to see that pattern of Deuteronomy. So let me give it to you for Deuteronomy. Introduction. And this is in chapter 4, verses 44 through 49. Moses is speaking for God, or Yahweh. This is the law that Moses set before the Israelites. It's the preamble. He's setting it up. Then you have the historical background, chapters 5 through 11. This recollects Israel's experience at Horeb and in the wilderness, which is the occasion for Moses to warn the people, be obedient. Then you have the conditions, chapters 12 through 26. This is the central law code. There are the laws and rules that you must diligently keep. This is when Moses is retelling all that. You have the publication, chapter 27. This is the covenant ceremony. You have the divine witnesses. I call as a witness against you today heaven and earth, chapter 30, verse 19. And then, of course, we've already discussed the blessings and the curses. So Deuteronomy, it's a retelling of the law, but it has great impact in our society, the way we do treaties, the way we do covenants, and the way we do contracts. Enjoy the week, and God bless you.